Yeah, hello. My name is Oliver. I'm a passionate Kickoff 2 players, and I'm very known and feared for my dangerous crosses and headers.
And your modesty.
And you're listening to the Scene World podcast.
Welcome to the Scene World podcast.
It's the Scene World podcast.
Yeah. AJ and Jörg here, as always, most of the time.
Generally.
Well, so in a minute, I will be talking, actually an update interview about Sociable Soccer 24 with Jon Hare. And I interviewed him back in 2016.
That's right.
When he actually first announced this to the public and had a booth at Gamescom in the retro area, showing the game, actually the beginning of the game, and then afterwards it became a mobile game first, and then end of the last year he actually released Sociable Soccer 24, and all the background and the reasoning behind it, and a bit of chit chat and background talk about the story and how it happened to be, will be in this very interview.
Woohoo.
So, yay, nice. Yeah. I was one of those people that didn't request a refund for the early access version, that never released. I waited the 6 years for the game to automatically add to my Steam account. Yeah. If there's one thing I learned from crowdfunding campaigns and early access versions on Steam, it's like, be patient. Eventually, good things will come to those who wait. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, some news. Well, we actually resumed releasing some videos from Gamescom last year, and thanks to the help from AJ, because he took over editing the last parts, and we started with an all English version from the David Blessen's Gamescom interview. So what I actually did is I did a live translation at Gamescom in German. So I cut away the German translation, and the German parts from Nico Barbat, where he told his side of the story, how he happened to be a supporter for David Blessen's book publishing in Germany, that was actually voiced over by the very AJ Heller, and that was actually achieved thanks to Descript allowing transcribing German audio feeds, and then I took that transcript from Descript and fed it to ChatGPT. That gave me a close to perfect English translation, and that I gave to AJ to speak in, and there you go.
Yeah.
That's basically what we did, and also released actually yesterday at the time of this recording is an interview with Strictly Limited, which is very, very nice, because originally we were told they don't do interviews, but Dennis, who also made a contract with them to release his albums with them, with packaging and all that neat stuff for a limited time, convinced them at Gamescom to make an interview with us. So after limited run games, now we have an interview released with the German side of republishing, re-releasing games for consoles, which is very nice. Not only consoles, limited run games also did re-release of PC games. Actually, in the post is Loom.
Yeah.
And Julia Minamata, who we interviewed a while ago, she actually suggested to me that I get the Loom release from the Limited Run Games because it also includes the EGA release. And it's funny because in 2010, when I first time lost my job from the last salary, I bought Loom the CD Talkie edition for 50 euros. And I was like, wow, that's quite expensive. But I knew in 2010 that this game release was very rare because they removed some of the game to make space on the CD for the audio, for the voiceover, for the talking. So people didn't really liked it so much, so it didn't really sell a lot. And nowadays, if you have the Talk edition on CD, which is pretty rare from the 90s, you can pay up to 600 euros for this very release. So was a good investment 14 years ago. Yeah. And yes, yeah, and so really looking forward to the Limited Run Games release. Yeah. So now I got the original. Bless you. So now I got the original and soon the re-release from Limited Run Games. And AJ is actually allergic.
Yes, I'm
against price raises.
Right now, it's hitting me hardcore.
Yeah. So you see, so inflating prices for retro collecting can actually harm your health, as we just saw. Yeah. Not only be tough on your wallet and your hopefully deep pockets, but also causing you to sneeze. Yeah. Anyway, that's one thing. Another thing is actually they also started shipping Trip World, which was actually released for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and is one of the most rarest games on the Game Boy. It didn't sell a lot.
Oh.
And it's actually so much so that a lot of AliExpress sellers made reproductions of the cartridge. Yeah. So yeah. That's coming soon. Yes, and also we mentioned Billy Mitchell's expert witness, and there is a video by the YouTuber Carl Jobst who actually made a video about it called Billy Mitchell's Expert Witness is Terrifying. More details about that in the video. I rather wouldn't tell about it here because we don't want this video to be, in certain categories. Yeah. And the German YouTube gaming channel Game 2, together with the German magazine GameStar, made actually a documentation and an investigation about what happened and how it happened, that the day before was such a horrible release. Well, not really, because the release got pulled and the studio closed down. So it's actually aimed towards international audience. So it's a German video with English subtitles. Yeah. Yep. And Trominal released actually a new Game Boy music,
Really?
GBMU. So we will link to that as well.
Okay.
And we mentioned that before. The new Silent Hill has actually been released. And here's the interesting thing is that nobody actually expected. They released it for free for the PlayStation 5. So it's an exclusive PlayStation 5 title, and it's released for free. So it's a full game, free to play, and it's actually focusing. I mean, it's a horror game, obviously, but it's actually focusing on the horrors from the Gen Z. So it's focusing on short message and social media.
Okay.
And when I saw some comments on YouTube about it, many people in our age actually wrote as a comment to the YouTube video like, okay, this game is totally not for me. I'm totally not part of this generation anymore. So it's absolutely boring, and I can't rely to what's happening in the story here. So yeah. So anyway, Konami is trying to connect to the youth with that game. Well, I mean, we all know how exclusive titles for consoles ended. Most of the time, after 2 or 3 years at most, there was a PC release at some point.
Right. Yeah.
So let's see how Konami is how Konami is going to handle that. All right. Yes. Yeah. That's basically the news I've got.
Okay. I've got a
What
few
have you
here.
got? Yeah.
So one thing is Holly Lowe, who we had way back in 2015 on the podcast, has released her long-awaited album, The Physics of Us. That's available on Bandcamp now.
Nice.
So we'll put a link in the description to where you can find that. It's pretty good. It's a lot of there is some Dave Lowe influence on that. There's a lot of it.
Yeah, we should mention that for people who don't remember. Dave Lowe is actually the musician in the 90s and the 80s that actually did most of the conversion of arcade game music to the home computers.
Right.
So like C64, Amiga, Atari, PC Engine. So David Lowe is one of those guys. He would do the conversions for many classical, many games like, for example, Street Fighter, for example, Hard Driving,
Yep.
Starfighter 2, and Formula One Grand Prix, the first release in '93 that actually was on the Amiga and on the PC.
Right.
And he did music for that as well.
Yep.
So, and Holly Lowe is actually one of the daughters from Dave. Just to mention that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's out. There's a new project called it's Quick Take for Apple II, which lets an Apple II use the Apple Quick Take camera.
Before we continue,
Yeah.
there's a lot of noise in the background. I don't know if it's like,
how's that now?
It's very, very disturbing.
How's that?
No, it's more like an air conditioner, perhaps. No, or laptop fan. I don't know.
Laptop's all the way over there. It's still working on the mic.
But it's like.
I got my gain all the way down.
I don't know, but just saying.
Yeah.
Uh,
God. Oh God, it's terrible.
Did you get a cold or something? Or what's
No,
happening?
it's just allergies. It happens every so often.
Oh, it's not even summer yet. What's
I know.
happening with you?
Nah, it doesn't have to be summer. It just has to be like a clear day.
Ooh.
Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, what
Yeah.
else?
So, QuickTake for Apple II has been released. It's software that lets you use an old Apple QuickTake camera, like the QuickTake 100, which was released in '94, but lets you use it on the Apple II. So that's available. You got to make a cable for it, I think, but it's doable. And finally, Protovision has released Yeti Mountain, which looks like the first game they're releasing this year, and it's a 3-part game. It's got 3 episodes, and it's, I guess, part arcade and part exploration and part platform. Like, each episode is a little bit different. And there's a lot of puzzle solving and figuring out, like, exactly, I guess, what the Yeti is or something. I don't know. Looks good. The graphics are good. It looks well made, so that's available.
There's one news we spoke about in private, but we didn't mention it the last time.
Yeah.
8-Bit Guy actually made a video recently that he's winding down his activity. Perhaps you could shed some light into it, because you are much more knowledgeable about what happened here.
Essentially, he's just he'll continue doing videos, but he's stopping the production of things. So like he won't be selling products like he currently is. He'll be rolling that back, and I believe he said he's rolling back the he's going to stop doing a lot of the like the retro brighting videos. So he does restoration videos, because there's only so many ways you can do that. But from what I gathered, like if the product was made by somebody else through him, like it was a T-shirt that he didn't make, it was made through a third party, that would continue to exist. But he himself is not going to be mailing out things anymore. He's not going to be doing any of that, because YouTube is not a viable way to make a living anymore, which is true. So he's had to, I guess, go.
Is it so? I see a lot of striving YouTubers and a lot of people like Modern Vintage Gamer, which we had 2 times in the podcast. He's doing better than ever.
I mean, I think it depends really on what you do, and I think a lot of his stuff, because he does a lot of reviews and whatnot, maybe he can't monetize that. I don't know. I'm not sure how that works. But yeah, he's been saying that he's not able to support himself with that anymore. And I mean, he's the guy's married, he's got a house and whatnot, and there's a lot of stuff probably that it's probably not a cheap existence. So I don't know what you can make doing just YouTube. I don't know what that kind of income looks like.
A lot of YouTubers actually are making Twitch as well.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So yeah. So that's about all with that. He's just dialing back his mailing out his actual selling of things and mailing them out, and some of the videos he's doing.
And also Spotify is looking for podcasters.
Oh.
As a paid opportunity. So
okay.
I don't see why he doesn't broaden his activity. It doesn't have to be only YouTube. You can, I mean, a lot of people actually are using Spotify or podcasts and Twitch to have more content for a second or third YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah.
So you can actually preserve the live stream.
Yeah.
And actually, basically cash twice on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I mentioned it previously. I feel like he is not very flexible in a way of trying out new things, new opportunities. But I know a lot of creators that are not only doing YouTube, but as I said, also doing podcasting
Right.
and online streaming, and later on using that as a way of creating more content to YouTube channels, which actually good because the content is already there. You don't have to produce it again just to upload something on YouTube.
Right. Yeah.
So perhaps that is also a way. Also, I didn't see him a lot on other media, like other podcasts as a guest or something.
Right.
He mainly either kept to himself or he was on a panel in a convention.
Right. Right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't
But
know.
it's not like I ran into retro podcast like, hey, the 8-bit guy is a guest today.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. 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 Like I said, I don't know the guy, so I don't know exactly how it works, but
If you want to talk about it,
there
join us as a guest.
you go.
I see. Yeah, anyway, that's just my opinion. I totally could be wrong. I mean, we are doing this thing here not for a living, but just thought there's more possibilities. It's always a bad idea to only rely with your income stream on one platform. I mean, YouTube could die tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, the videos would still be there because, as we know from our interviews, the Wayback Machine is secretly, not so secretly, more openly, running a backup server in case YouTube dies at some day in the future.
Right.
You know. So yeah. Anyway, and anything else, or was that?
That's all I got.
Oh, okay, nice.
That's it.
Well, so let's jump to Harry interview with Jon. Right. And talk about arcade soccer games.
Yeah.
Yep. So today we have another guest, actually a returning guest, and this time it's Jon Hare. Hello, Jon.
Hello.
So, soccer game, football game, pioneer, coder, artist, and we had you.
Not coder, designer and artist.
Designer, okay.
A musician, but not coding.
Okay, designer then. Okay. Credit where's credit due. Yeah, so back then you have already been a guest in the podcast in 2016, but that was at Gamescom. I interviewed you in person.
Long time ago.
When it was very windy outside.
Yeah.
And I remember you were showcasting your latest game that was about to be released back then, originally Sociable Soccer.
Uh-huh.
And why I invited you today is at the end of last year, I suddenly found the new Sociable Soccer in my Steam account.
Cool.
So perhaps let's talk about that. I have to admit, I also saw, of course, that some of your early customers from 2017, from the early access of the Steam release, were pretty rough on you. Like, vaporware, it will never release, and so on. Personally, I never asked for a refund because I trusted you. You said it would come, and it actually came.
And it did come, yeah, exactly.
So perhaps let's continue what happened after 2016.
Well, okay, so when we spoke in 2016 in Gamescom, we'd probably been working on the game about 9 months at this point. So it's very early stages on the PC and console. And we hadn't, although we planned to do mobile from the start, at this point we never even touched mobile. And then we can go forward from when we spoke to you 1 year afterwards, in the November of 2017, so a little bit after that, we launched the early access version on Steam. And again, at that point, we'd only ever really worked properly on the PC because although the Kickstarter was for PC and console, we didn't sign to that, so we could do what we liked. So we stayed on the PC because it's easier to do all the features on one machine and then to move it. But we were always bearing in mind that it had to go to mobile. So it means you develop in a certain way so that it's more mobile compatible on the way forward. Anyway, so then I've got to say, by the time that the Steam Early Access version came out, and it did okay, but it didn't sell like loads and loads of copies. All the fans who were really keen bought it, but we didn't get a big swell of numbers. And we needed money. I mean, we didn't have much money. We'd been working on the game by this stage for 2 years with the full team. So you can imagine that everyone needs paying and they need to live, right? So we were scratching our heads what to do, and it was difficult. And then we met this Chinese mobile company in London, and they said, we're looking for football games, and we showed them our game, and they said, oh, that's really cool. We'd like to get it on mobile. And we said, great. We've always planned to put it on mobile, and they offered us a contract. So we worked for that for about a year because we needed the money, basically. And actually, the game has never come out in China on mobile. It's like stopped and started lots of times. It never happened. But these are nice guys to work with. Actually, it was fun. And we started to build in some of the mechanics you get in Chinese mobile games. So like very aggressive card packs. You always need 2 currencies because it's the law there. There's various things. There's certain ways they have of playing which are a little bit different from the rest of the world a little bit. But it was very educating for me in terms of how Chinese market works. And we worked with a designer there. He was a Chinese guy, but extremely knowledgeable in football. He was a Sampdoria fan, believe it or not, a Chinese guy. And although our communication in language wasn't great, our communication with football was like supremely good. So that was quite fun.
Okay.
And then about a year after that, so this is 2019. So the game started in October 2015. So we're now like 3.5 years into the development. So part of my job is to design the game and manage the team in terms of that, and manage all the contracts within the team, make sure we're happy. Another part of my job is to go and go out and look for deals for the game, publishing deals, so we can sell the game and this kind of stuff. Anyway, so this American company got in touch that we'd seen about 2 years beforehand and said, have you still got that football game? And is it working on like Apple devices? And I said yes. And he said, is it the crossplay, the multiplayer working? And I said yeah. And he said, okay, we've got an idea for this. And I met him in San Francisco at GDC. Like I go there every year. It's one of the, like I go to Gamescom. I met you there. I go to GDC, and I go to a couple of events in London, and that's about my business calendar normally in general, depending on the year. Occasionally other ones. And
so hope I see you again this year, perhaps at Gamescom.
Oh, I'm there every year. I'm there every year. I'm a fixture now. So where was I with this story? Yeah. So anyway, the guy contacted us, and he said, "Well, look, we checked the game out. We sat in a hotel with him and like 3 other guys he worked with in San Francisco, and he said, yeah, this is cool." And they knew that they had the inside track that Apple Arcade was coming. And they also had the inside track that they needed sports games that were multiplayer on iOS. And as luck would have it, we hadn't signed it away anywhere much because we only worked with a Chinese company. So we were able to like do a deal with them, and it turned out to be a very lucrative deal for us, like from Apple Arcade. And we needed it because we were 3.5 years into development. We not really much money. We had a bit of money from the Chinese. The Chinese deal kind of got us through a year, basically. But we needed that, and we got money that made up for the time we'd put in and gave us a little bit more. But of course, now our focus for a while had to be on Apple Arcade and what Apple needed. You know, now effectively we're working via an American company with Apple, so that means we support iOS, Mac, and Apple TV, which must sell about 6 copies, but you still got to do it as part of the deal. So that kind of meant that because you're designing for the Mac, effectively a lot of Mac is PC. Really, there's not a lot of difference in terms of the way you're doing controls and stuff like that. It's very similar. So we were always designing it for that. And because it's Apple Arcade, it's a very different economy to the Chinese mobile. So whereas the Chinese mobile is all about vicious free to play and loads of card packs and open 10 cards and throw them in the bin or whatever. Apple Arcade has got no in-app purchases at all, no advertising at all. Totally the opposite to free to play mobile. So during the Apple Arcade process, we cleaned all that Chinese stuff out of the game to give, because it's a subscription service, right?
Right. Yeah.
But there is a subtle difference. So basically, when we went through, the way we were driving the Apple Arcade version was that you got a certain number of matches per day, and it was fixed. And if you wanted to play more, you had to come back the next day. So it's like trying to drive people to come back, because you get paid on a session basis from Apple Arcade. So basically, Apple a huge pot of money and say, right, we're going to share this out with all the developers, and then this week we're going to see which developers have got the most traction on their games, and then we'll give them their percentage of the money. That's kind of how Apple work, right? Which is fair enough. It's a reasonable model. But of course, with the premium game, like when we're selling for PC and console now, it's very different. So someone pays a bunch of money up front. In our game, there's no in-app purchase, there's no loot boxes. So even though we've got now, you know, what's different from the Apple Arcade version that's been out since 2019 to now, it's still out now. I mean, it's towards the end of its cycle, but it's still out. In 2020, Pocket Gamer called it the premier arcade football game on mobile. So it's a good game for mobile then. And
congratulations, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite nice. Yeah, we've done quite well out of this. But,
I mean, you are a pioneer. I mean, you made Sensible Soccer, Microprose Soccer. Mm-hmm. One wouldn't expect less from you, right?
Well, I mean, the game hasn't been perfect. It's been all right, and then we started talking to FIFA Pro for a protracted period of time. I'm going to say a long time, and we were working on the PC and console versions. And there's various changes we had to make. So obviously the graphics need upgrading. We've got these new player models in there now. That's an obvious thing to start with. We also needed to decouple the game cycle from being so many matches per day, because if you play premium, you don't want to be stopped because it's the end of the day. So we had to put that to like seasons that were not tied to the day. To enable everyone to play at their own pace. Although some of the competitions do go by the day because of the way they work, but you've got no restriction on matches. So then, and then we eventually got the FIFA Pro license. Actually, very, very late. We got the FIFA Pro license signed in September last year. That's how late we got it signed. So we've been preparing for it by allowing to put player photos on the player cards, and working with a company actually in Berlin, to supply all these photos to us, which they had been doing. And we managed to get that in for the launch, which was great. So you've got the proper player names and all the photos. And, you know, obviously the scale of the game is big. It's like SWOS in terms of size. So you've got like about 1,300 teams. There's over 1,000 clubs, and there's all the countries in the world. You've got 25,000 players, of which just over half are licensed. So, I mean, as you probably know, the German league doesn't come under the FIFA Pro license. So when you get the FIFA Pro license, you get all these leagues like England, Italy, and Spain, and France, but you don't get Germany. So our German players still remain unlicensed. In fact, we can't even use the city names in Germany. So we decided to name all the German clubs based on the nicknames that their enemy teams give them.
I saw that, yeah, quite interesting.
Yeah, because we needed something that people could kind of tag on that wasn't going to be a problem with legal rights, and there's maybe a bit of fun for the German football players and the football fans, so they'd understand that there's the nasty names that the other teams call them or whatever. But that's what we did when they had one.
I mean, your positive side effect in the market is actually, you probably saw it, that both your big competition soccer games totally went downhill in the last couple of years. I mean, Pro Evolution Soccer is now eFootball, and the release was horrendous. And then FIFA Soccer.
Yeah, and then FIFA's now changed to esports, right? Esports FC. I mean, I think that EA has. I understand why they made the change. I don't know if you've heard the rumours of the amount of money FIFA wanted for their license, but
I heard, yeah,
it was really, really, really big. And I think EA were correct to say, you know what, from my opinion, I didn't think about FIFA that much until EA launched a game called FIFA. And EA have made FIFA's name as an organisation. Genuinely, they have.
Right.
So for FIFA to turn around and go, now we want even more money, I think EA are right to say, you know what, keep it. We'll do our own thing, because they've always been pushing EA Sports anyway with Madden and NBA and all the other stuff in the background. So I think they made the right call.
Yeah.
And although the game, I mean, I'm not a big lover of the FIFA games, but I've seen people respond to it, and it's a FIFA.
Yeah,
with
but actually, I was not talking about the license of either competition. I was actually that the press and the general reception of the latest incarnation of both games were not very positive. So.
Well, that's great. Of course, I love that. Absolutely. I mean, Konami seems to have just jumped off a cliff. I actually don't understand what they've done. Pro Evolution Soccer was a great game for quite a number of years. And I think they kind of made a mistake of trying to beat EA at their own game, which is extremely hard to do because, we've deliberately gone for an arcade experience. We're not even trying to be a simulation because, A, that's not the kind of football game I like. But B, if you want a simulation, you generally buy FIFA, or now you're going to buy EA Sports FC. And someone's going to have very, very deep pockets to compete with EA. They're extremely good at what they do, right? So our vision is that what we're presenting is an alternative. People might see it as a retro thing because a lot of the retro games will have played it. But actually, what you've got to remember is for younger people, this is a new way of playing a football game. It's not complex moves with lots of buttons. We've added these Fortnite-style characters deliberately to appeal to a slightly younger audience. When you see how we've got some new little videos and commercials that we're lining up at the moment because we're launching the console, in the first quarter of this year. So I'm not going to give the exact. I'm not going to give the exact day away yet because if I say the date, we're bound not to hit it because that's happened for so many years, right? But the plan is that the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Nintendo Switch versions will all come out this quarter, which means by the end of March. So that's our current plan. And then on top of that, we're continuously updating the PC version. So actually, what happened was, as you said, you got your copy. It was just there on your Steam account, right? So we wanted to give the Steam version to all of the people who bought the early access for free, but before the main launch. And we actually asked Steam, can we please do this? And there was a technical reason why we couldn't do it, which has actually been a bit, well, it's just added the fact that we kind of soft launched the game when it was launched because we needed that feedback from all the players. We needed that ability to tune everything, to put the game out there on the servers and see how that was working, and to get the feedback. Because although the game has been a long time in an Apple Arcade audience, the gameplay, the way you play it on a stick. I mean, you can play it on a stick on the Apple Arcade, but it's not the same. But that feedback we didn't have en masse. So when the game first came out, we spent the first week or two fixing all the stuff that we could have done in secret had Steam allowed us to launch the game 2 weeks earlier before release, which we wanted to do with guys like you, so we'd get your feedback. So we kind of were basically doing it in public, which wasn't great, but actually we managed the process quite well, and I think that we've really done a pretty good job of working with our Discord community since we've launched the game. So I don't know if you've been on there, but it's a relatively active Discord community. We are listening to the feedback of everyone out there. There's a lot of things to do on the game. I mean, there's so many ways you can improve it, and we're always a step ahead. So we've been improving stuff with the goalkeepers and stuff with slide tackling. Like last week, I was with our development team. We were doing that. So I can play it on my machine today. I was playing it on my machine. I think it's pretty good. But of course, there's always a chance there's some bugs in it, some side things you didn't know. But everyone else will get that relatively soon. But we're going through a phase of delivering kind of the rhythm's been around a patch a month recently. I think we get another one in the next few weeks. And then awesome. And then we're kind of obviously prepping for our console launch. So there'll be some you know, like in order to get it, you know, you're submitting to like Nintendo and Sony like now. Like we've already been in the Nintendo submission process for a while. We're submitting to Sony now, so people understand this. So it's really where we are. Literally this week, we submitted another version to Nintendo today, for example. So you can't always give a date because it's not in our control. I mean, if Nintendo say no, we're rejecting it because of blah, then we have to go and fix it, and then we come back, and then we. Right. And it's kind of frustrating because you're trying to line up a PR and marketing campaign around a fixed date that you've got all these different platform holders, and any of them could like respond in any way. But yeah, I mean, we're really, really close now. So
yeah, I remember I had a similar conversation with Ron Gilbert and David Fox once about the NES release of Maniac Mansion, and they told me how horrendous it was because of all those little things Nintendo wanted to have changed. But as a revanche, they didn't catch the hamster in the microwave thing. So, yeah. So it seems Nintendo didn't really change a lot when it comes to that.
Nintendo have always been quite picky, but I've got to say, I mean, the hardest one was Apple Arcade because we launched the Apple Arcade version. You know, we intended to launch it kind of on the launch of Apple Arcade itself. But Apple had decided they wanted about 150 games. So you've got more than 100 developers have made these games, right? And Apple had never worked with software makers like us before. And suddenly they got all these titles queued up to QA, and then they had like 150 titles and a few weeks to check them. And that the feedback loop was so slow, they were learning, and Apple were learning how to do the process. So they'd check the game, they'd find a bug, they'd go, there's a bug, and then send it back. Then you fix the bug, and then 2 weeks later they'd go, we found another bug, and then send it back. And they kept on doing that, and we were losing weeks and months to
because
the process.
Of the slow, it was so slow.
Because the process, they hadn't optimized their process for reviewing games. It should be review them, find a bunch of bugs, like as many as you can, then tell the developer, and then they can fix all of them together. Then they can come back, and that way the process is a lot faster. So yeah, that was quite interesting to be in Apple's teething, like in the teething zone for Apple. And there's still some weird things. I mean, like if you want to update the game, because you're supporting so many languages and there's so many aspect ratios, like for every one game you need to submit over 1,000 screenshots.
Wow.
And it's things like that the development team get resistant about. It's like they lose heart. It's like so boring and like so long to do the process, you know. But I mean, it's one of those things. I've got to say, in general, actually, they've been very good to work with Apple. It's been really nice. It's been a really good process for us. So yeah, it's been now we've almost back to home ground with Steam and with the consoles. So it's going to be interesting for us with Sociable Soccer because this is a long-term project. Like, I've already been 8 years on this thing.
Awesome! Oh, wow. Okay.
We've only just launched the Steam version, you know. So yeah. For me, this turned into a little bit like the longest project I've ever worked on. Actually, it is now really. And so now it's about working with the partners we've got and building on what we've got, and establishing a different way to present football games. You know, to bring arcade gameplay back. It's working well online. Of course, we can always optimize the way everything works. But, you know, the initial indication there's some really good things about the game. It's fun to play. People like it. It's got quite an addictive kind of loop when you play it. It's not the same as FIFA. It's not the same as Sensible Soccer. Which
is perhaps a good thing. As I said, the new generation is learning a new way of playing football games. So, hey. You know.
In all reality, it makes me laugh, really. Like, we've got a whole generation of people thinking the game's for them because they remember Sensible Soccer. But actually, when they first played Sensible Soccer, they were like young kids themselves. And we've made the game for young kids, you know, because we know, you know, effectively we've got two audiences. We've got the older audience and then we've got the younger. It's almost like a father and his son. you know.
Yeah,
And
right.
all we want is that kind of like
Right.
generation thing, so
Yeah.
that people play it. And actually, if you look at the way we're marketing it, we're pushing it down that angle. It's like introduce your kids to more fun ways to play games than playing FIFA and waiting for 20 minutes for the game to boot. And then you watch Ronaldo doing this with his hair for like about 5 minutes, and then you run around in treacle, and then you press about 8 buttons to cross the ball, and that's my view.
What you don't know, 2016, I was actually part of the press conference event in the business area of Konami, where the new Pro Evolution Soccer for that year was released. And I asked the brand manager, Adam Betty, what he thinks about your Sociable Soccer that you were presenting in the retro area. And he was like, yeah, it's nice, it's great. But, underlining, he was like, it's not really competition for us that we would take serious. Who would have thought that eFootball would turn out such a disaster 8 years later? It's strange in hindsight how things can go sour.
I think what happened was, it's funny. I think what happened was, as I said before, I think Konami tried to take EA on too directly with simulations, which is very hard. When EA are a big machine, right? When they decide they want to take a space, they're going to take that space, But then I think they need you too much the other way. Like, okay, then we're going to go free to play. We're going to do it this way, and then you've got the whole free to play thing. Like for us, this is a consideration because when our Apple Arcade deal times out, which happens the end of this year, and we've got a decision to make. Okay, what do we do with mobile going forward? Because you can't do Android stuff if you're signed with Apple Arcade. You're banned. Like it's not possible.
Right.
So when we get to like the end of this year, we want the game to be on mobile in some form or other. We've got to make a decision. Like, do we go free to play, which most people are doing, or do we stay on some kind of subscription service or make it premium? Premium's is possible on mobile and does work for some titles, but a lot of people have gravitated towards subscription where they can, or some kind of free to play. I'm not sure.
I mean, the problem with me on the iPhone was when I got my first iPhone 3 in 2008, I paid, €3, €5, €10 for some games. But when Apple stopped supporting 32 bits, such games were never updated any longer. So I no longer could play Double Dragon, Pole Position, and all that. And it's kind of wasted money, and that's my issue, actually.
From a developer perspective, it's a nightmare. I mean, before Sociable Soccer, I made a word game called Word Explorer. It took about 3 or 4 years to make. And it was on iOS. And Apple decided they were going to change their operating system, and my game didn't work anymore. And the development team I made it with, I didn't have a contract with anymore. They're in Poland, And so the game just like stopped. And this is actually platform holders. They should, in my opinion, like make sure that whatever the new operating system is, it can accommodate the old stuff. So they're not relying on the developers the developers don't endlessly exist to service their new updates, whatever they've done. It's not economically viable to do that. So unfortunately, the developers suffer and the gamers suffer because their game no longer works. And we're like, well, we don't really want to employ people to do it again. We've already done it once. It's like asking a book writer to go back and rewrite stuff because, I don't know, the ink went all blurry and you're going to write it again. It's like, come on, So, but yeah, so we're umming and ahhing about that at the moment, like how to approach mobile. Obviously, the PC and console is quite straightforward. There's a big roadmap for us of features we're going to be adding because we'll be doing an annual title each year. So we've already done this year. We're already working now on what's next year and then the year after. But the question is, with the mobile's the question. The PC console is relatively straightforward. We know what we're doing. We're moving towards adding more and more and more features. And people have to remember, like sometimes people go, oh, the career mode's not the same as SWOS. Well, SWOS took 2 years to develop from Sensible Soccer coming out. 2 full years. Right now we're like 2 months after the first launch of Sensible Soccer in the timeline of Sociable Soccer. We just launched it in the middle of November. Not even 2 months ago yet, it was launched. So it was 2 years later that SWOS came out after the initial Sociable Soccer. And the second thing is, we only got the FIFA Pro license signed 3 months ago. Now, you can't make a game about a player market where you buy and sell players without having real players. You don't want to buy and sell loads of fake players. So we simply didn't design it around that kind of market because we didn't have the license for it. Now we've got the license, but now we've not done that work. So it's going to take quite a while to get, if we choose to go in that direction, to get a kind of player market. I mean, it would be nice. Have you played much of Sociable Soccer now?
I played a bit, yes, but not really a lot.
Yeah.
But I played, yeah.
So basically, the experience of developing your squad is a little bit more like an ultimate team. So you're getting players in, and then as you play the game, you're getting more players in. But the players are kind of chosen for you by the system a little bit more. We've not got no card packs. There's no loot boxes. There's no in-app purchases.
Which actually is good. I saw that. Yeah. It's actually good because you wouldn't want that. You don't need that such things. In some countries, I read it's even illegal, like in Belgium and stuff.
Yeah, there's different ways about whether they consider that to be some kind of gambling or not.
Right.
I mean, from my perspective, it's just a game reward, and game rewards are game rewards. But we've chosen not to put any in-app purchases, any loot boxes at all. You pay your cover price. I mean, it costs, I think it's €29.99, if I'm correct.
I didn't check it because I didn't have to buy it. I never asked for a refund, so I automatically got it.
Yeah, good man. You got it for free.
That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about, because I figured there are two communities that are really hard to deal with as a designer or developer or whatever, and that is the retro community and the Kickstarter community. Both are very quick in calling games vaporware, and he ran away with the money and so on. It must have been so exhausting for you to read all those people being angry on you and mad and not having patience for the game to be out.
I think the thing which is the most frustrating is people forgetting that this is our jobs. Like, all of us working on the game is our job, and they're worried because they spent 15, 20 euros or whatever. And we're like, well, we've got everyone's wage in our team riding on this. And if you think the early access version paid for 3 years of development for the entire team, you're so far off. Like the obviously we don't release all these numbers, but the estimation is just so far off. Like, that if they saw the numbers, they'd understand that they're not really thinking. Like, you can't. I think that people's valuation of stuff is really weird. Like, when we sold Sensible Soccer, I think that was about £20 back in 1992. So when you're selling a game for £25, like 30 years later, from my perspective, it's like, and it's got a FIFA Pro license attached.
That must have cost millions in the end.
Well, yeah. I mean, people have to understand that this stuff isn't free. And I think that the issue is there's so, compared to the old days when I started making games, there's so many people making games when it's not really their profession. And the reason that's an issue is because they don't understand how to price their work. They devalue them. Whoever invented free games is the person I want to put in the firing line, because they took my work and said it was worth nothing,
Right.
This should never have happened. This was the start of everything going wrong, So now you've got, once that price benchmark is set, everyone's going, oh, it cost like €7. That's a bit expensive. You buy a cup of coffee and like a couple of biscuits for 7 euros and not think twice. But because someone invented this zero price point for our work, people kind of think it's okay to use that as a base, you know. And actually, it's really weird how people, since we got digital, people have valued it less and less and less and less. But from our perspective, the work is the same. We've still done the same amount of work, in fact more, because it's going to work on servers now. And there's this endless server and data management and stuff.
But there are some exceptions. There are some exceptions. For example, Flight Simulator 2020 released on physical disc, and also the upcoming Tempest Rising game, which is spiritual successor to Command & Conquer, is also going on physical.
Well, we'll be on physical disc. We will also be on physical disc by the end of this quarter. So you'll be able to get the game on PC or on Switch or on PlayStation physical disc. We won't be doing Xbox physical disc, but we'll be doing the other platforms. And all the platforms digitally will also be available. So there's a lot of platforms of this game about to come out.
That's nice to hear that even on the PC you get physical. Because in the last years, physical looked like code in a box. And I'm like, that's not physical. That's just a box and a code,
To be honest, I don't know if it's code in a box or a disc. I can't remember which way we're going to go. So leave it up to them. It might be a disc. I guess they'll announce it. I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember. And it might be different for each platform. Obviously, with a Switch, it's going to be a physical thing.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, all of the platforms are different. As a game designer, which is my job, I'm not so interested in the different ports and how they do stuff. As long as they play well and the controls are done well, that's really the area I don't focus on. I'm focusing more on the features for the next thing we're doing. I'm always looking ahead, like what's the next thing. So, and it's nice at the moment that we can add, like we can do these patches and we can add bits to the game as we're going. Of course, we're holding some big features back to bring out next year, but in general, to improve everything we've got, we can now continuously be doing that in the background. So that's
awesome.
It's really fun. It's really fun to be getting this whole ball rolling and improving the game each time and listening to the feedback of the community. And we had our first world champion around Christmas. We had a guy called Carol's Garden from Greece, and he won our first ever tournament. In fact, I've got to do his trophy. I've not ordered it yet. Sorry.
Awesome.
I've got to order the trophy, post and send it off. So yeah, it's fun.
I think I saw it on X where you announced it, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We announced. I mean, there's so many social media channels now. It's quite bewildering. In fact, I've been quite busy, and I'm seeing my accountant tomorrow, so I got to do all the accounts. Right, and I just had a look at my email. I've got like 450 emails have appeared in my inbox. Now I'm religiously getting that thing down to 0, but they just appear. Where do they come from, these messages?
I mean that is the thing of being a pioneer in the video game industry. You get a lot of emails, a lot of requests. So that's why I'm very happy that you took the time now to talk to me and give us an update on the situation.
Well, I'm glad. I'm very happy to speak to you. I'm going to have to sign off soon because I've actually got to go and play. I play five-a-side football with the local team, and I'm due to play in 20 minutes. So we're going to go and get changed.
Right. So talk to you soon then. Right.
Yeah.
And good luck with your console releases and the updates.
Thank you. And for anyone, who wants to get the game, it's there on Steam. Sociable Soccer 24. It's been there for a couple of months, and like I say, all the console versions will be out before you know it. Awesome. I'm happy to talk again once they're out. Okay.
Great, wonderful. Let's have an update. Yeah, sure. So talk to you then. Have a nice evening.
Okay. Cheers.
Bye bye.